everyone watched the 25th BET Awards, anticipating sparkle, glamour, and a few viral moments. So Tyler Perry wasn't meant to be the one to light up the internet that evening. However, no one anticipated that Perry Hollywood, the quiet tycoon and ardent admirer of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, would take the stage and deliver what amounted to a live exposé. He didn't convey his comments with precision, yet the significance of them cut like a hot knife through butter, through Meghan's meticulously manicured image. Let's go back a little. Perry was the one who stepped in when no one else would, when Harry and Meghan left the royal family in 2020. He gave them the keys to his $18 million estate in Beverly Hills, paid their bills, handled their security, and basically made sure they had a nice place to live. Getting to America, what we didn't see behind the scenes was how that connection gradually devolved into a one-sided transaction that Perry claims left him emotionally and financially spent, even though at the time it appeared to be a kind gesture from a buddy who understood the strain of celebrity and public scrutiny. And that's what made his BET Awards speech so startling. Perry, some folks borrow blessings like they're owed but never return the favor. He continued, narrating the narrative of lending someone his home, his assistance, and his heart, only to be abandoned once they had what they needed. He didn't specifically mention Meghan, but he didn't need to. Although the camera didn't pan to anyone, you could tell who he was referring to if you understood the background. According to reports, Perry had been biting people behind closed doors, his tongue for years. However, this time everything went wrong. According to sources, it began when Meghan asked to use his private jet. She called it a simple favor without mentioning the cost or complications. Meghan allegedly reacted angrily when Perry declined, not because he couldn't afford it, but rather because he felt taken advantage of. The pivotal moment was when he later told insiders what began as a favor had become a pattern of entitlement between friends, and Perry wasn't the only one who felt that way. Several people close to him claim that producers, co-workers, and staff started warning him behind the scenes. Meghan never returns favors. When someone doesn't fit her story, she cuts them off after amassing them like social currency. Initially, however, it became evident that there was no intention to pay back as the millions accumulated and the thanks remained mute as the Netflix and Spotify deals came in. Perry wasn't merely narrating a tale when he stepped onto the stage that evening. He was making a point that even the best, when a generous person reaches their breaking point, they stop being silent. The idea of a misunderstood lady muffled by the crown was the foundation of Meghan's brand, but Perry wasn't the crown. The tabloids weren't him. He was the one who welcomed her into his business with no conditions, and now he was openly criticizing her. Suddenly, viewers in the building and online witnessed a carouse. In a new version of the fairy tale, the savior becomes a whistleblower, and the kindest man in Hollywood eventually decides that enough is enough. The timing was what made it much more painful. After Perry's speech, investors began to pull out of Meghan and Harry's recently begun presentation for a new documentary about freedom and power. The illusion was broken. The trust was lost, and moyen to tron for art wine becamble our boltatorai. Hollywood, which is based on unwritten conventions and backstabbing, often doesn't take sides in public disputes, but Tyler Perry wasn't just ordinary. He is a respected studio owner who is well known for both his creative empire and his elegant yet understated manner. Therefore, when someone like that disparages someone in particular, moyen to tron wanif, powerful like sight hair and inforto war. Hours after the BET Awards, a producer involved in Meghan and Harry's most recent Netflix bid reportedly stopped supporting them. After attending 2 of the project's planning meetings, another investor stated quite plainly, "I don't want to be involved in something that feels this toxic." It was about the people who created it, not the content. Once considered a draw for platforms aiming to appear inclusive and progressive, Meghan's name was now recognized as a warning sign. Meghan's public relations team rushed back to Archwell. They attempted to spin the story by contacting prominent media outlets. Perry is shown as resentful and out of touch by the AIM, runners, and someone who misinterpreted Meghan's intentions. They provided behind-the-scenes video, exclusive interviews, and even a podcast rebuttal, but none of it stayed. Reporters didn't bite. In fact, the effort just made matters worse. It is a cry of despair. The more they pushed, the more people began to question what they were actually trying to hide. Behind the scenes, things got even more sloppy. Perry's friends started talking about how he had not intended to go public, but felt trapped after years of being emotionally manipulated. He had debated for months whether to say anything at all, but the private plane event and the unplanned business pitch weren't the last straw. It came to light that Meghan wasn't merely ungrateful, rather she was deliberately using Taurons, their camaraderie, to gain power. According to a source close to Perry's team, Meghan attempted to use his name to get into a financing circle in early 2024. She brought up his support during a pitch meeting without getting his consent, implying that he was a quiet sponsor of her new media endeavor. When Perry heard the news, he was furious. At that point, he made the decision to go public, not to spread rumors, but to prevent the appropriation of his reputation. At that point, other people began to speak up as well. According to a former Meghan's team helper, the workplace was emotionally draining. They asserted that Meghan dominated all narratives, demanded allegiance, and disciplined anyone who disagreed with her choices. A producer who collaborated with the pair on their now-canceled Spotify contract stated Meghan destroyed every good concept because she was obsessed with perfection. She had no desire for partners. She wanted yes men, they claimed. Even Oprah's circle, which was once thought to be close to Meghan, started to discreetly separate. According to sources, there haven't been any cordial phone conversations between the two groups in months. Additionally, Oprah's staff was radio silent when Perry's speech became viral. Just space, no solidarity, no defense. They were tumbling like dominoes. Meghan had established herself as a representation of female strength and self-reliance, but the very individuals who had once encouraged her were now undermining that image. Many people felt as though a mask had been removed. This time, the stories weren't from tabloids, rather, they were from people who had assisted her, and in Perry's case, worked with her, actually kept her, and what started as one man's audacious remarks evolved into a cultural revolution as the days went by. Meghan Markle was no longer impervious to criticism. Meghan's reputation wasn't the only thing impacted by the criticism, her bank balances were also hurt. With other possible investors stepping out and Netflix allegedly re-evaluating its long-term commitment, Arkwell's financial future appeared to be in jeopardy. Unsteady. According to people close to the foundation, a number of internal projects had already been put on hold. The planned hiring was halted. Weekly budget evaluations were taking place. Reluctance and damage control enveloped what had once been a thriving brand supported by large channels and celebrity hype. Additionally, public trust was eroding. Meghan had long fostered the reputation of being misinterpreted. Navigating royal oppression as a woman, the voice of empowerment for the underdog who challenged the monarchy was hers. However, after the separation, social media attitude shifted significantly towards skepticism as insiders began to share accounts of emotional manipulation, unreasonable demands, and selective allegiance, leading others to wonder how much of that story was truly true. Hashtags that were formerly supported. She was suddenly inundated with side-by-side comparisons and criticism, portraying her as conceited and deceitful. This wasn't merely a PR setback for Meghan, who had painstakingly maintained every element of her public persona. Rather, it was an identity crisis. Her feminist icon, self-made media magnate, victim of royal abuse, and other themes were all being examined and questioned in real life. Duration, longtime fans were silent as well. Formerly eager to produce dazzling features, media outlets were holding back. No one wants to take the chance of supporting a brand in freefall. Insiders claim that behind closed doors, Meghan was in a panic. After the bet speech, she texted Perry in rage, accusing him of betraying her, humiliating her, and destroying her family's reputation. Perry, however, did not respond. He wasn't finished then or later, and that quiet said a lot. The Hollywood mogul's friends started attesting that he had been emotionally besieged for years, under pressure to offer more voice and to always remain faithful to someone who treated loyalty like money. Other voices came next. According to a reputable publicist, Meghan's team tried to put journalists on a blacklist. For posing spontaneous inquiries, Meghan frequently disregarded strategic advice if it didn't support her own story, according to a former Archwell consultant. According to one former employee, the job is a place where thankfulness goes to die. The anecdotes were incriminating because they all repeated the same pattern of emotional leverage and control manipulation, not because they were spectacular. Even well-known Hollywood figures who would have remained impartial started to talk cautiously. Some quipped that managing Meghan's staff was like playing chess with a mirror. Nothing ever accurately reflected back, it was all spin. Then the numbers appeared. According to a recent survey, U.S. support for the Sussexes had fallen by far more than 30% throughout the previous year. Many people in the UK already viewed them as paras, and now that the scandal had spread around the world, sponsors were turning away. The fact that possible partners were avoiding Meghan's once growing empire was now a red flag. Harry stayed very silent throughout it all. Some claim he's working behind the scenes to restore what's left of their public image, while others believe he's just worn out, burned out after years of family turmoil, media disputes, and now witnessing the collapse of their close group. Tyler Perry's statement was straightforward, quiet, and surgical rather than raucous or furious, and it was deadly because of that. Meghan Markle recently discovered that in a place where reputation is everything, it revealed a pattern rather than just one instance. The royalty is subject to exile twice, initially from the crown and currently from the culture,